All right, good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome back to another episode of the Coffee Q&A. I'm Jay, your host. Here we are on the daily morning live stream where we talk about coffee, answer your questions, and whatever's going on. What's up, Bald Head? How are you, man? Craig, good to see you. How's things in Ottawa? And everybody else, welcome to the show. I'm Jay. We're here every weekday, more or less, 10 a.m. Eastern Time. And today's question comes from Michael Ta, who's one of our regular listeners and viewers here. And he asked, do you have a favorite or preferred method or recipe for the origami when brewing with the House Nation? And if you're not familiar, House Nation is a coffee that I make for Spro called House Nation. It's our basic house blend. And the idea behind the House Nation is that it's a coffee that we want to be accessible to a wide variety of people, right? Something that that's good for people that enjoy coffee, that know coffee. Something that is accessible for people that are coming in for the first time to our shops and trying out the coffee. And they're like, well, what do you have? What should I? Well, give the house coffee a try. So it's meant to be one that has notes of chocolate with good body that can stand up either by itself and be satisfied. So we're taking it to a little bit more of Maillard reaction, a little more caramel development. We're getting more of the sweetness out of the coffee. So it's not a very lightly roasted coffee. It's more moving towards the city plus range. Really the targeting for the roasting, if you know about roasting, is that we're trying to take the coffee right up to the point and dropping it before first crack. So if it starts to crack, the second crack. So if it starts to crack as it's in the cooling tray, that's all right. That's kind of right where we want it. Just nice caramelization, nice sweetness, a little bit of nuttiness on the finish, and then something that you can drink either black, that's really smooth and accessible and really easy to drink. My goodness. Or something that has enough body to stand up to cream and sugar. Should be the kind of drinker that likes to use that kind of stuff. Unlike a lot of my colleagues in the business, my gosh, what is wrong with me? Unlike a lot of the colleagues in the business, I'm not really I've never really been down on cream and sugar. I've always kind of had the belief that if you're really against something, just don't have the capacity to offer it, right? Mom, good morning to you as well. And Michael, good to see you. And so, what does that mean? But like, for example, we only wanted to have one size of coffee, right? 12 ounce. And, one of the things that I don't like about places that, if you go to some place and you're like, hey, can I have this? And they're like, no. Well, why not? They want to give you some kind of pretentious reason for it. I don't have it. For me, I wanted to make it so that there's no pretense behind it. Maybe there is, but really there's not much pretense behind it because we just don't have the capacity to do it. So if you came to me and you're like, hey, can I get a 16-ounce coffee? I'm sorry, we don't have 16 ounce. We're not able to offer you a 16-ounce coffee. Well, why? Well, we don't have the cups for it. Oh, okay. So things like that, right? So if you don't want to do syrups or let's say syrupy drinks, don't have syrups, right? If you don't want to offer, oat milk, just don't have oat milk. It's simple. It's not like, I don't need a lecture from you. I just need to know whether or not you can do it. Anyway, move on. Water's getting a little bit crazy. So here's the things. We're going to have the origami. Michael wants to know, how do we make the origami with the House Nation? This is a little sample that I pulled from the roast batches, really just for me to drink here at home. And the House Nation is our basic coffee. Oh, let me get this out here so you can see it. And back with our monkey pod. Right there's our coffee. Really nice aromatics coming off it. This is actually probably a month old or so. This particular batch was roasted on my friend Sarah's Diedrich IR 12, fully automated. So it's like the most expensive and blown out of all the new Diedrich machines that are made. So if you're not too familiar with Diedrich, it's a roasting company based out of Idaho that makes drum roasters that are heated by infrared plates. So basically, they take the gas and they heat these ceramic plates, and the plates radiate heat to the steel drum that then absorbs it and transfers the heat of the heat from the metal to the beans, mostly via conduction, right? There is some convection because there is a fan that's running through the drum, but majority of the heat transfer is happening due to conduction as the bean is touching the side walls of the roasting drum as it's turning. So as you can see here, it's a fairly medium roasted coffee and nice, not too dark. Like I don't really want to go dark with it, just a little bit of nice development, get that caramelization, get that sweetness. And this particular one is a Colombian from Valle de Cauca. And so really, it's not a, it's with the blending in the house nation or blending in general. It's really about understanding what you want to achieve, right? And so in this case, we want a coffee that's got good body, that has chocolate tones, has a nutty finish, has um, nice sweetness to it, very clean. Those are the characteristics we're looking for the house coffee, and the actual components of the house coffee will change throughout the year. So as different coffees come available, or some coffees go away because we've consumed them all and they're no longer available to us, the blend will change. And so I think blending is really the most challenging aspect of coffee roast production. And, you know, you have a lot of people in the industry who've kind of like poo-pooed the blending thing because they're like, oh, you know, blending is using inferior coffees. And certainly in many instances, blends do use a lot of lower quality, um, lower attribute type of coffees, mainly because that's the profile they're trying to do, and whatever parameters that company has set for their coffee program, they're trying to meet that. And so a lot of people in the industry have gone, especially side, have gone to embrace more single origin because honestly, the single origin thing is actually quite easy, right? You find this really unique coffee that you're like, oh, I love it, and I'm going to roast it, and here you are. These are the attributes, and that's it. But if you want to have something that's really interesting or consistent, it's much more difficult. You have to blend it, right? So, for example, when I started many years ago, you know, I talked to people that, like, let's say in the beer world, beer guys love to poo-poo on Anheuser-Busch and Budweiser, right? And Budweiser, I'm not a big beer person, but Budweiser is relatively plain and benign, right? It's not terribly, they may not be terribly exciting from a craft brew perspective. However, Budweiser always tastes the same, year in, year out, regardless of the crop conditions, regardless of what happens in the world, and everything's an agricultural product. So the agricultural side of it is always changing. Right. So even in coffee, let's say you have one farm and you have one plot on the farm, and you're like, I love this plot. I'm going to buy coffee from this every year. That plot is going to taste different every year if you were to separate it that way. Right. And so you could celebrate that, which it's certainly, you know, those little individual crop lots should be celebrated. But if you're trying to develop a blend, you need consistency, or the idea is consistency. And the ones that are really interesting to me are like the champagne houses. These guys that are making their house style, let's say it like Dom. These guys are tasting freshly fermented wine, like just freshly processed white wines. They're tasting them in a really young phase, and they know the profile that whatever champagne house is known for, and they're blending those wines together so that the eventual outcome, however many months or a year or two later, will be that house style that has remained consistent for a generation. That's super difficult. Like Craig is saying here, blending for consistency for consistent taste is hard. It's very difficult. It's the most difficult thing to do, I think, in food and processing. But in this case, this one coffee meets most of the criteria, so I didn't really have to blend anything with it. Sometimes we'll push in maybe a little bit of a natural just to add a little bit of a fruity element to it. Sometimes we don't, you know, and we'll taste the coffees to figure out, okay, maybe we'll add something else to give it a more dimension or to bring, so maybe one coffee might not have enough body. So maybe we'll add something that will give it a little more body. So if you're like working with some Brazils that are just kind of more benign, you might add something else to give it a little more flair to get that profile that you want. But everything changes. And so it's really quite an interesting thing to do, to blend, because you're just always trying to figure out, you know, how do we maintain a consistent flavor profile for the guest experience that's also meeting whatever criteria we've set for our quality and taste. So anyway, so but Michael's question is not about how to blend. It's about how to brew it with the origami. So this is the origami, the resin. You've seen this a number of times because this is all that I have. So let's get our little base. So the origami, you can buy the origami. Well, when you buy the origami, it comes just like this, which actually I thought was a little bit irritating because I was like, why don't they just give me a base with it? But you can brew, like this if you want, right? So that you can just put it here in your cup and brew that way. Or let's say I take this carafe. It'll work in the carafe, right? So look at that. Not a bad way to brew either. Not too wobbly. But they do have the base. And the base allows you to, it has the ridges here and you can kind of lock it in place so it doesn't really move. So we'll put that there and we're going to get our scale. I'm going to measure that. Now, the question is more about like, do I have a favorite preferred recipe? There really isn't a favorite preferred recipe for the House Nation. How we tend to work under my auspices is basically we have a basic style of a brewing that we adhere to or that we subscribe to. And that what we talked about, 2 grams of coffee for every finished ounce of fluid that you want. So if you're brewing a 12-ounce cup, 24 grams. If you're brewing a 8-ounce cup, 16 grams. And we want that to brew within 3.5 to 4 minutes. We want to use about 198 degree Fahrenheit water, more or less. We're not too hardcore on that, as long as it's in that range. And then we adjust depending on the coffee. So while we may have a particular general recipe, the actual recipe that we're using or the actual process that we use gets more refined and defined as you brew with the coffee, right? Because here's the thing. So coffee, like this coffee is now a month out of the roaster or so, maybe 3 weeks, no, probably a month. The coffee is always in a state of flux. Unless you're freezing it, then it's not really fluxing. But every day, the coffee is going to be a little bit different. It may not be terribly noticeable, but it may not be terribly noticeable, but it may be noticeable. It's just going to be depending on the coffee conditions and all sorts of stuff. So you're trying to bring the best of flavor out of your coffee with your brewing, because that's the last step. There's nothing else. You can't really control anything, right? By the point time you're brewing, that's all you can do. So it's always changing, and that variable is in flux. Right? It's always, I don't know if it's up or down, or if it's going down or just going up, or whatever. But it's in a state of flux. So you kind of have to drink a little bit and taste, and then adjust, and then, in some ways, you may always be chasing it because maybe you're a day behind because you're basing your thoughts on your brew adjustments based on yesterday's brew. So today you're still going to be a little bit behind the curve, but really what you're trying to just keep up with it so that you can try to maintain the best flavor profile. But I think that if you had one recipe that dictated very strictly everything about it, that would only be really great for maybe one coffee in one particular window. And I think this because when I was competing in the US AeroPress Championship, I was given a coffee to use. Raul Rodas from Paradigma, who one of the World Barista Champions, he gave me his coffee to use. Not because of for the only reason because I didn't have any coffee with me and I wasn't going back to my hotel to go get the coffee I had in the hotel room. So he was kind of like, to use this coffee. And that coffee did really well. And that AeroPress recipe, I mean, I aced the entire championship. I went straight from no one to the champion of the United States in just one fell swoop, basically. Now, for their world championships, which actually happened later that day, so I was kind of robbed of my glory. Like I can only bask in the glory of being the U.S. champion of AeroPress for maybe 3 hours, and then it was time to be defeated miserably in the world championships. But at the world championships, they gave us different coffee. So I used the same recipe, same grinder, same grind setting, same technique, different coffee, eliminated the first round. So that really, it just kind of bolsters what I've always kind of believed and worked with at Spro is that The recipes are good, but may not be the exact one to represent that coffee at the exact height of its flavor at that moment. If that makes sense. If that makes sense. All right, so let's get into it. We're going to get our scale going here. Oh, there we go. So this Temu scale is a little bit, it takes a little bit of force to get it to do its thing. We're going to do 24 grams like always. Ooh, a little bit too much. Oh, perfect. 24. Now we're going to grind away with our grinder. So yesterday, different coffee took a bit long. Let's go back to that. We did 3 clicks there. See if that'll do. Maybe do a little bit more. All right. Now, I'm not really making a change based on much technical data other than the fact that yesterday's Maui Mocha took a long time to brew. I think it was like 15 minutes, 5 minutes, 15 seconds. I made 3 clicks and then I added another one just because I feel like it's going to be maybe where it should be. So we'll see. We'll see. But of course, different coffee, different density, different roast profile, different age. I could be totally wrong. So when you're switching with different coffees like that, this is the crapshoot that you deal with. But if you're using the same coffee day in, day out, that crapshoot is mitigated. The odds may forever be in your favor. All right, there we go. Oh, we're going to take our Origami filters. Now, like Craig mentioned, you can use the Kalita 185 filters. They have the ribbing that goes in these grooves that make it really nice. Although, I was wondering about that. I was thinking about that more yesterday, pondering this thought. I think the idea behind these ridges, whether it's on here or the V60 or anything like that, is to pull the paper away from the surface so that you get flow, through the paper on the sides, so that it comes around. But if you're using a Kalita that actually sits up against the wall, right? If it sits up against the wall, then I don't know. I mean, honestly, I don't really know if any of that really makes any sense, or if it makes a difference. All the coffee is flowing through to the center, so I don't know. I haven't put that much brain power towards it. I know some guys do. All right, so let's put this all together. We're going to fold our filter over. If I keep using these, I'm going to run out, and then I won't have any more because I really don't think these are available in the United States. All right, let's put this in. A little bit of staticky. Ooh, look at that. Man, there is really nice aromas of chocolate. Maybe a little bit of cherry. Sometimes I can't really imagine that I'm the one that roasted the coffee. Michael says that I saw them for sale on Rogue Coffee and Slow Pour Supply. The filters. Okay, good. All right, so we're boiling. People are messaging me. I'm supposed to meet some of my dearest friends for lunch today. Oh, one of them has to cancel. Oh. All right, here we are. We got the boil going. And then, we need to reset the power. The timer. And now we're going to start the time. Here we go. So what are we doing? We're going to add 75 grams to bloom and get the party started. There we are. 775 is fine. We're going to wait 30 seconds. So we're not really varying much from our normal brewing approach. 75 grams, first 30 seconds, and then we're going to add and just keep the water level enough so that it saturates all of the coffee. Now, I know a lot of guys will talk about things like bypass and all this stuff. I don't know if I subscribe to any of that idea, right? Because to me, it's the physics of it. Like it's all going to one place. I don't think it's going, in other areas. And I've yet to try coffee or see like demonstration where that's really the case. And I know there's these guys out there that have sliced these in half. But the problem is that you've sliced it in half. And so you've changed the entire dynamic of the actual brewer by slicing it in half. And I get it, the idea behind it, but that's not by slicing it in half, that's not how the brewer is actually going to perform, right? Because you may have this half round and then it's coming up against this vertical wall. It's, I don't know. What do you guys think? I mean, you guys probably watch more than I do. Craig says the Kalita filters don't fully stop, but then the Origami just tastes like a Kalita. Well, that's a good point. I mean, like, I've never really been a big Kalita user. I do have the Kalita 185 and the Kalita Wave here somewhere, but I've never been a big proponent of them. Mainly because I don't know if you really need to have so many brewers. Like, does this Origami really give you a greater advantage than, let's say, the V60 or the Kinto Slow Brew or any of the other ones? I don't know. I don't think so. Because they're all large single orificed brewers. Maybe with the B House or the other ones that have restrictors, small holes at the bottom of their brewers, there's going to be something there. But other than that, I don't think so. But as you can see here, I'm just keeping the water level saturating the coffee. We're at 302 grams, 2 minutes, 38 seconds. So we've got good pacing. Maybe a little bit on the fast side. So maybe that extra click wasn't so necessary. But I'm going to pour and stretch it out just a little bit more. I'm always trying to make sure that all the coffee is wet, in solution, or I don't know what you call it, saturated. So we're getting close to the end. 351.9. Okay, we're going to stop there, 352. 3 minutes. Yeah, we're going to be close to our ideal time of 3 minutes, 3.5 to 4 minutes. Craig says, I tested the V60 against the Kono that Hario copied, and I prefer the Kono, flat sides except just near the exit hole. Just a preference. So, that's interesting you say that because I was actually gifted the Kono. My gosh, it must be almost 10 years ago I was gifted it. A nice little gift set of Kono from my friend Raymond So in Manila. I still haven't used it. It's actually terrible. But yes, you're right. The Kono has that smooth side, and maybe that does have something. Maybe the smooth side, because the smooth side will then force everything together, whereas these rib sides can allow some to flow through the filter. I don't know. We'll have to do some more playing around with it. All right, so we're at 4 minutes now. Well, it probably stopped around quite a while ago, but nice thing, I just put that in the sink and then, rinse it out. So here is our elixir. Nice and dark. Will that help to get some clarity? Let's use, we'll use our clear glasses. I'm still a little bit hot. So let's give it a little moment to chill down. Interesting. There's a little bit of rough notes on it. I wonder if that roughness could be, maybe we're a little bit fast. I wonder if that extra click has introduced, it's like yesterday's brew had a little bit of bitterness when it was hot. I'll actually be roasting more of this on Wednesday. Actually, I'm thinking about maybe doing the live stream while I'm roasting it. That's if Sarah doesn't have the objections to be, doing a live stream from her roasting place. So good body, maybe medium plus body. A little bit of dryness on the finish right now. Light, like dry, dark cherry notes. A little bit of cacao. Actually, the body is maybe more medium minus. Like medium, but a little bit less medium, maybe. Not bad, not bad. I like it. It's kind of what I'm looking for. Although I was hoping that the body would be a little bit more, but I think that could be because if it's brewing a little bit faster, then it's going to be less extraction, less body. So perhaps that's a little bit too coarse, just a little bit. So again, this is where it comes in, where you taste something and you're like, okay, so, and this is the benefit of like doing the same coffee day in, day out, is that you do one like this and say, and I think here maybe I'd like a little bit more oomph. So I would probably, where is this? Let's put it back here. So I'd probably want to come another, can you see it? Okay. Another click back, maybe 2 clickbacks, and then work with that and try that and see if that brings out better body. The flavor is nice, got nice like cacao, dry, dark cherry, but I would like a little more body. I would like a little more oomph in the body. So yeah, there it is. There it is. All right. I don't know what else there to say. Sometimes I just don't know what else to say anymore. It's like, okay, we talked. A little bit of like a hard candy. There's a depth in there of a little bit of a hard candy, like, I hate to say it, but like a Jolly Rancher kind of like, that kind of like aspect of it. All right, so I hope that helps. Does that make any sense to you, Michael? I mean, does that make sense? Am I making any sense at all with this description of brewing? I know some people would prefer to have like hard, fast rules, like do this and do this and do this and do this, and then you get amazing cup. And sometimes when I watch some of the videos of YouTube on brewing things, they're like, this is the ultimate brew recipe, and they say do this, and I'm like, I don't know if anybody really wants to do that, or can do that. Like, why? Like, what? It's just never, I always think about it, it's never the same, because whatever coffee they're using is not the coffee that I'm going to have, right? So anyway, I guess that's it for today. Thank you very much for tuning in. We're going to be back again next week, Monday, 10 a.m. with our, Michael says, yes, it does. Like the entire description. I can apply the concept. Yeah, that's really what I'm interested in. That's what I would like to hopefully impart to people, is that, I want to give you an idea of concepts and the thought process of like being able to work through it and analyze it and make your own choices. Because you know what? And I get it, when you're starting off with something, you just kind of want to have someone to give you, just kind of spoon feed you, like, hey, do this and do this and do this. You get this result. Like, okay, got it. And certainly as I've been entering in new fields of interest, I've certainly come across that myself. Like when I was getting more into sporting clay shooting, it's like, well, what choke do I really need on my gun so that I get the best results? Well, they're always like, well, it depends. It's like, oh man, that answer again, right? And then like I've been like thinking about axe chopping, for not throwing, but like chopping firewood, and everyone's like, well, what axe should I buy? Well, that depends. Oh, man, come on, man, just give me. Do I need the hatchet? Do I need the forestry axe, or do I need the maul? Well, that depends. If I'm flying a Pilates, do I pull the parachute? Well, that depends. Oh man, I'm not flying. I'm just kidding about that. Anyway, that's pretty much it for today. We're back again next week, Monday morning, 10 a.m. with more coffee Q&A. So hope you have a wonderful weekend. What am I going to do this weekend? I got no plans. I think I don't have any plans. Yeah, I don't know if I have plans, but hope you have a good weekend, and see you next time right here on the same bat time, same bat channel. All right, later. Thanks, Mom, Michael.